Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you. My name is Ardian al-Mahdi.
And my name is Hissam al-Mahdi.
And welcome back once again to The Goal of the Wise, the show solely based for the reason and purpose of reading The Goal of the Wise, written by Abdullah Hashim Abul Sadiq. We'll pull up the QR code on the screen right now, so this way you guys can follow along and read with us and go over The Goal of the Wise, written by Abdullah Hashim Abul Sadiq. You can scan the QR code, or you could visit us on our website at theahmadireligion.org. The book is available in multiple languages such as Arabic, English, Spanish, German, French, and other languages available on the website, and more to come, inshallah. So anyway, without further ado, let's go back to where we left off. We left off with the Abrahamic covenant. We talked about some of the things of the Abrahamic covenant that dealt with the circumcision of the males, and why it is that we circumcise, or why it is that Abraham circumcised himself and his children, and why it was a covenant for himself and for future generations to come. And you know, we're going to be talking about certain topics that for sure is going to be disturbing for many people, because it is really out of the social, societal norms that we accept today. For example, you know, today people are okay with you know, people having gay rights, but maybe perhaps back at another time it wasn't okay, or perhaps it was okay. But we know that social norms in society tends to change. Humanity, as we said in the beginning with Adam and Eve, their children procreated through incestual means. And humanity continued to procreate through incestual means even up until the time of Prophet Abraham himself. And this is a part of the Goal of the Wise, which Abul Sadiq has pointed out in the third covenant, and we will be playing the slide for you right now.
In Genesis chapter 20, it is shown that Abraham and Sarah are both brother and sister, as well as husband and wife. Now Abraham moved on from there into the region of the Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur. For a while he stayed in Gerar, and there Abraham said of his wife Sarah, "She is my sister." Then Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. Abraham further confirms it in Genesis 20:11-12. Abraham replied, "I said to myself, there is surely no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she really is my sister, the daughter of my father, though not of my mother, and she became my wife." And in Sahih al-Bukhari, it was narrated that the Prophet of Allah Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family, said, as Abraham, peace be upon him, was walking with Sarah, they came across a tyrant from the tyrants, and it was said to him, "Verily here with us is a man that has with him one of the most beautiful women, so send forth for him." And he asked him about her, and said, "Who is this?" And so he said, "My sister." There were also other types of sexual relations that were happening not too far from Abraham, peace be upon him, including homosexual relations, in the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, where Abraham's nephew was sent to, Prophet Lot, peace be upon him. In Genesis chapter 18, it states that there were complaints raised to God against Sodom and Gomorrah.
Okay, so we see, you know, and that's a point that we have to point out, and that's what Abu Sadiq had pointed out in the Goal of the Wise, which is that there is no such a thing as to what was prohibited in terms of who you could marry and who you could have a relationship with. There is no law against the act of marrying one's sister, and there's also no law, especially during the Abrahamic covenant and the Noahic covenant and the Adamic covenant against the act of, so far as we see, homosexuality.
Right. There is like, if you imagine right now different countries, right, like that exist at the same time today, like Iraq or say Iraq or the United States or some different countries around the world. Let's say countries that are much more open when it comes to this kind of stuff, or even the age of consent is different.
Yeah, that's true.
So like laws that we have in our land are laws that are man-made by specific people. So at some point, God, when we're looking into history and we're looking into God's law was elevated from Adam alayhi salatu wasalam to Abraham alayhi salatu wasalam. There was much more jurisprudence law that was inserted at that time. And in fact, at that time of Abraham alayhi salatu wasalam, even God did not put down any verses that goes directly against or put a punishment for such like sexual, you can say, interactions. So the idea is very clear in here. Abraham alayhi salatu wasalam is saying it outright, she's my sister. And he married her. So the idea is that marriage between siblings at that time was not forbidden at all.
Yeah, and it's something that the Muslims cannot escape from, because although Muslims, they tend to say and they hold on to this belief that the Old Testament and New Testament, the Bible in general, don't read it, don't accept it. Everything that they said about the prophets are lies. But now we find narrations from the Muslims that show clearly that Abraham indeed married his sister. He calls her my sister. Sarah is his sister. So the hadith that we find here from the Muslims actually goes like in sync with the Bible. It does not go against it actually. So this cannot be a distortion. Clearly it cannot be.
Yeah.
And also concerning the Sodom and Gomorrah, there is this, maybe people might be thinking like, hey, that doesn't really make sense. How can you say that the act of homosexuality, there was no law against it? Because everyone who has read and heard about the story of Sodom and Gomorrah have it cemented in their heads that the reason for God punishing the people of Sodom and Gomorrah was because they were homosexuals. But here's the thing, it's like if we had to consider that and say that this was the only reason, then we are to say that the people of Sodom and Gomorrah were having consensual intercourse.
Yeah.
Everything was based on consent. Two men wanted to be with each other, and they would be with each other. Two women wanted to be with each other, they would be with each other. But this is actually completely against what the Bible states, because the way that it's worded about Sodom and Gomorrah and why God wanted to destroy them is completely opposite to the actual fact of what's going on. We see actually in the Bible in chapter 18 of Genesis, as Abu Sa'id pointed out, he says, "Then the Lord said, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great." So the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
So who's doing the outcry?
Yeah, it's definitely not the people of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, because if you're doing it and you're liking it,
Yeah.
so like if two homosexuals are performing intercourse with each other through and they're consenting to it, where's the outcry? There cannot be an outcry because they both agreed to do it, they consented, and they are mutually pleasuring each other through through this action. And then it continues and says, "And their sin is so grievous that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know." So we see here that God is saying that their sin is so bad that He's going to destroy them. But now bear in mind, in the ancient world, the practice of homosexuality wasn't really that big a deal. And what do I mean by that is that the people in that time, they were practicing it. The people of Greece, for example,
Yeah.
Greece is a known civilization that was known for having extreme sexual freedom.
Yeah.
You can be
even with children.
Yeah, even with children they were doing it. They were doing it with females, with old men, with elderly women.
It was known that boys would, if they wanted to learn a new skill or they wanted to learn something from a master of some kind, then they would have to be apprenticeship program with these masters, and these masters would use them for sexual desires as well.
Yeah.
Like, this is a well-known fact in history, so it's not something like new. But yes. So the idea is that since that's the case, and the era that Sodom and Gomorrah existed in, were a kind of era which was very open when it comes to sexuality, and they were very various types of marriages happening, from group marriages to homosexual marriages to heterosexual marriages, and all these kind of different types of, and sibling marriages and insemination marriages, and different kinds of marriages between people, between men and women, and men, and all these like mixtures. So at that time, it was the outcry that the people have made was not made by the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. It was made by people who are complaining about Sodom and Gomorrah doing something to them.
Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise, then the one civilization that should have been destroyed for the same sins as Sodom and Gomorrah in terms of homosexuality should have been Greece.
Yeah, God should have lifted him and lifted them, as the Muslims would say. They say the punishment is flipped it upside down. That's what they say as they happened, which we know that that's not true.
Yeah, and we know that Greece was a civilization that lived on. They were not destroyed. They practiced homosexuality. They practiced child marriage. They practiced all these things. But the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, like you said, there was an outcry against them, not from amongst their own people, but people outside of Sodom and Gomorrah were complaining to God about them.
Yeah, I mean, look, we spoke about this. Like, if you go to Chicago right now, you'll find an entire town called Boys Town. And people who are from Chicago, they know it. Boys Town is a town for gay people. Yeah. This is literally, you enter the entire town, everything there is for gay people. There are people who are gay, they live there. They want to live there because that's their environment. So there's an entire town there. Why doesn't God do it to them? Why didn't God lift the earth underneath them and do the same thing as he did to Sodom and Gomorrah? If it was that for that reason that God punished Sodom and Gomorrah, then he should be just enough to do it for everybody else. Correct? So now we know for a fact that it's not because of the act that they did consensually between each other. As adults, they consent to doing something specific, but it is for something much more serious.
No, for sure. And Abu Salik points out it's a very, very long story, but in it has many, many, many examples of what was going on, and perhaps even more. And he told us this way back in the day, right? But he inserted in this book this amazing, interesting story that lays out the foundation as to why God destroyed them in the first place. One of the things, for example, was they would annually gather. They would gather their children and all of their belongings, and they would include their own children and their wives in sexual orgies. So, dude, you're taking innocent kids who have nothing to do with this sense of pleasure and this sense of understanding of what sex even is, and you're forcing them to participate in orgies.
That's quite insane.
No, it is insane. It's like now it should get our head spinning. Oh wait, it wasn't just homosexual behaviors.
How did they grow to be like that, right? Yeah. There must be a system that's brainwashing them since they're children into being something like this. Otherwise, an entire town becoming like that. How can that work?
So now we actually have evidence of child abuse. So it's now children who are making outcries. Right. Children who are crying out, saying, "Hey, why is this happening to me? What's going on? Why am I attending these festivals?" From the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, that's terrifying. They would also try finding out ways of how to basically rob you. So imagine you're going into the town of Sodom and Gomorrah and everybody is out to get you. To the extent that they would even start ripping, they would even rip your clothes apart just to sell them or just to attain them. Yeah. And you would go away completely nude and naked. They would rob you, mug you. And not only would they rob and mug you, but in order so that this way that you don't fight them and you don't rile up against them, what they would end up doing is they would rape the person who they robbed. And since this was something unheard of at that time, that, hey, a person getting sexually assaulted to that extent and being mugged, it deterred anybody now from doing anything to them, because now it's if I do anything, perhaps they're going to rape me again, so it really deterred people from acting against Sodom and Gomorrah.
And for the poor guy who manages to enter the city and wants to interact with the people and the marketplaces, they would flood them with silver and gold. They would give them silver and they would give them gold, and but they would not trade with them. So can you imagine, you have all this silver and all this gold, and you're hungry, you're looking for food, you're looking for water, you're looking for a drink, and then you go to the store and you give them this completely fine brand polished gold, silver coins, and you give it to them, and they go like, we don't trade with you, sorry, you're a foreigner.
No, I mean, that's psychologically messed up. And it's like, imagine that you enter into a town and for some reason, like, people are flooding you with coins, like gold, silver coins, and you're like, wow. Well, these people must be really
town, you know?
Yeah, what a generous town, what a generous people. Like, wow, I'm gonna eat good tonight.
Yeah.
But then, like, this guy who's a foreigner, everybody's in on it.
Yeah.
Like, that's how sadistic they were. Everybody was in on making sure, like, hey, let's toy with them.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that they feel like, you know, we're good people. And then when they least expect it, we're like, hey, you know, we don't trade with you. You know, you're gonna starve in this town.
Yeah.
You know, we're sorry, but like, hey, you know, this tasty food that we have on the counter, yeah, like, you know, we're sorry. Your money's no good here.
It's no good here, sorry. Even though it's gold. And we gave it to you. And it's our town's gold. It really is sadistic
it's
way
really
of thinking, you know, like in treating people. So now we're building Abu Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam in the Goal of the Wise, the third chapter, the third book of the Goal of the Wise, which is called the Third Covenant with Abraham. He's painting for us a picture of Sodom and Gomorrah, which was not really painted for us by the scholars, because the scholars, as you know, they really like to hide these things from the general public eye, because they have an agenda to push forward. So this kind of explanation doesn't benefit their agenda, because now you're actually saying there is more to the Sodom and Gomorrah story than meets the eye.
Exactly.
So now we have a picture that is painted that a town of people who consensually have homosexual intercourse, and also they are raping people who are visiting them. They are robbing people. They are abusing children. They are literally killing people by starving them to death. Yeah. And then going and taking all their belongings for themselves and fighting over who takes it. Mm-hmm. They are actually, like, even the law itself of the land is in on this scam. Yeah, there's a huge massive. It's like, imagine if scammers took over a town, right? And that's how I imagine now. After Abu Sadiq's explanation, I imagine like Sodom and Gomorrah is scammers and loan sharks, and these guys gathered together and they managed to tactically take over the entire town, the entire Sodom and Gomorrah city.
Yeah, no, they were really weird. You know, there's one incident that's recorded in the book where there's this guy named Hedor, I believe that's how you pronounce it, in which he saw a guy traveling by town, and he had this beautiful carpet with a rope attached to it, right? And he was like, I have to have that carpet. You know, I have to find a way how to get that carpet. So he goes to the guy. He's very hospitable, you know, takes him into his home, makes him sleep the night, and he steals the carpet from him. The poor guy, he wakes up and he's like, hey, can I have my carpet back? You know, I left it with you under your care. And he's like, oh, you didn't have a carpet. Actually, what you're describing to me is that you actually had a dream. And let me interpret the dream for you. So, like, basically, this beautiful multi-layer, multicolored carpet that you had means that you're going to own a land with all sorts of fruits and trees, and it's going to be so amazing. So this is the interpretation of the dream. Oh, and by the way, since I interpreted the dream for you, you have to pay me, how much money was it? 8 pieces of silver, or 5 pieces of silver?
Normally it would be like about 8 pieces of silver, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. Let's say a specific amount of silver, and if then later on he would say, but because you are my guest, I'm going to give you a good discount. After this, can you imagine you have your own like wallet, right? And you go to a hotel and you leave your wallet on the desk, right? You come back, it's not there.
Yeah, it says here, 4 pieces of silver for the dream interpretation, but, you know...
For a discount.
Yeah, as a discount, for 3. Okay. The guy was so upset. You know, imagine that. Like, imagine some crazy lunatic is trying to convince you that you are crazy, that the whole time that you thought you had a carpet in your travel, you didn't, and it was just a dream. Now, what do they do? Naturally, like a person who is being robbed, a person who is being harassed,
you raise it to the law.
You raise it to the law. Yeah. So they go to court, and you know the book actually describes that everybody who is in the position of power in court and law are all in on it. You know, they're all in on. As
the judge, the judge is like making deals with this trustworthy dream interpreter.
Yeah. So then he tells him, he said, "Look, actually, this guy is a trustworthy dream interpreter. He interpreted your dream right. There was no such thing as a carpet, and you have to actually pay him the money that is owed to him."
Yeah.
And, you know, because he didn't do it and he was extremely frustrated and he was insistent that this was not a dream, the people of the town, they just harassed the guy, they ran him out of town, and the guy never saw his carpet again.
Yeah, and you know, like they used to stalk people who enter into the town as well, who managed to enter the town. And there are two people, for example, the guy would be talking to the guest and trying to show him around supposedly, and he would walk him right next to a wall. And the other guy is waiting over there behind that wall. And as soon as this guy gets close, he pushes the wall on this guy and kills him.
Oh, yeah.
And by killing him, then they know where he is. They know where his house is. And then they would go and they would jump into the house and they would take all his belongings. Yeah. They're like people who were masterminds of thievery. I mean, it's not something that actually is far-fetched, right? We have thieves around the world. You all know that. It's not something I have to prove it to you. Their credibility or like their creativity in stealing, it's like in movies and made in movies right now, like the heist and different movies, right?
Yeah.
They actually make movies about it. So the idea is that, imagine just these guys actually made it. That's all. They actually became the government, right? And most of the time around the world, we don't even have to go that far. Go to Iraq, you'll find that these scammers are in Iraq today scamming the country. You go to Syria, go to Beirut right now, and what's happening in Beirut right now of disasters that are bombardment that are, I don't know how many thousand people already died already, right? How many people died? We know for sure over 2,000 people are already injured. So now what do? No, we just copy paste what the corruption that is happening today over in the time of Sodom and Gomorrah, then you will see a corrupt state that is by its own core corrupt. And the cries, the outcries came also from those who visited as foreigners, who got murdered, who got raped, who got robbed. So this outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah came to God, reached him. So he sends angels down, right? He sends angels down, and he sends these angels to check what's going on. Is this really the cries? Is it happening, or is it fake?
Yeah, and we know from the story of Genesis. And by the way, you know, if anyone wants to know extra stuff of what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah, we left off at page 35. It's actually between 35 and 37 of the Goal of the Wise. So if you want to read on to continue what happened and how they dealt with the people, then you are more than welcome to read that. But anyway, let's continue as to what you said. Okay, so what does God do, right? God, He sends these angels, right, to this city of Sodom and Gomorrah. This
is in Genesis chapter 19, by the way, for those who are following along in the Bible as well.
Yeah, so we're going to paraphrase chapter 19. But anyway, in chapter 19, we see that God sends these angels, right, to Sodom and Gomorrah and sends them over to Lot, right? And what do, Hussam? Aren't they the ones trying to take Lot out of the city? Because the people right now, they're at that brinking point of like, hey, you know, God's really had enough. They really messed up, and now we're going to destroy them.
Right, exactly. So that's exactly what was going to happen. God subhanahu wa ta'ala was going to annihilate that town. And so because of how much evil and oppression is spread in its land, it's just not possible to fix certain times. Once you go cancer can be fixed maybe in the beginning by removing it, but then after a while it's just not possible. When it spreads too much, that's it, the body's dead.
The body, it's like irreparable. And, you know, it was pretty insane. You know, the story starts off right with, you know, the angels coming, but then the guests who, you know, because now they're Lot's guest, Prophet Lot, he takes in these angels, and the people of the town, they hear about it, and then they go to the house of Lot, and they're requesting that your guests come out of the house. And, you know, what does Lot do? Lot, as a response, you know, because he knows what they want. He says,
for sure. He offers them his daughters. Like in the Quran, it's mentioned, right? Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them, these are my daughters, they are better for you. Just do not shame me and my guests. These are my guests. These are under my roof. They have the respect. You have at least respect me enough to like not do this. Here's, if you wanted, if you're so lustful, here's my daughters. Take them. For marriage.
And it's not just the Quran, but it's also the Bible too. In Genesis 19, it states the same thing, because these guys, they're coming up so crude and so direct with Lot. They're like, hey, you know, those men that are in your house, bring them out so we can have sex with them. You know, And also, obviously, like these people, when Lot tells them, hey, you can have my daughters, what does that mean? It's not like one guy is going to be with his daughters. He's basically inviting them.
Yeah, it's a group.
The whole group. So imagine that a prophet, in both cases, in the Quran and in the Bible, is allowing that his own daughters engage in a group sex intercourse kind of relationship going on. As you said, a group, like a group marriage.
Yeah, group
scenario.
marriage, basically group marriage. So the idea is that Lot alayhi salatu wasalam is trying to give them his two wives so that they can have what they want, what they came there for, which is lust, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is they didn't want that. They wanted those angels specifically because they heard from someone,
Mm-hmm.
right? That these angels are so beautiful that they've never been seen before. Such a beauty has never been witnessed in that town. So they were really adamant to get those angels and to have that relationship with them. So the idea is then moves on to, well, which kind of like a side note here is that how did they know?
Mm-hmm.
How did these Sodom and Gomorrah people know about what happened with the guests entering into the house of Lot?
Mm.
They knew from the wife.
Yeah.
From the story that we know, it's like the wife is the one who revealed for them, and she was considered by God in the Quran as a cheater, as one of the two examples of the cheating wives of prophets, sallallahu alaihi wa alihi, and like alayhi salatu wasalam, which is the wife of Lot and the wife of Noah, as two cheating wives.
Yeah.
So that they, did.
And what's funny about the two cheating wives is we went over in the previous episodes about the wife of Noah, Noria,
Right.
and we proved without a shadow of a doubt that this whole act of betrayal and as the Quran describes, meant adultery.
Yes.
So what does that mean? That means that Noah's wife, as we said previously, was a cheater. She committed adultery and cheated on her husband.
Yeah.
The wife of the wife of Lot as well did the same thing, cheated on her husband.
Yep.
And it's actually known that she was actually one of the people of the towns who used to be intimate with other female women, something that is described in other narrations as well.
Yeah,
so it is extremely fascinating. But however, just like Noria, Noah was allowed that she embark on the ark and be saved, and Lot as well was allowed to take his wife also out of the town. This was something permitted. However, the wife of Lot looked back and she became, according to the Bible, a pillar of salt. And she was destroyed.
Yeah.
She was destroyed and the whole town was destroyed.
So the question, Ardian, is like really something that every Muslim has to think about, and every Christian, is how come Lot offered his daughters for sexual intercourse with these horrific people, this gang of people? Why didn't he stand up and fight?
Yeah, and it's a very good question, and some people might even think like, what is this prophet lewd? Is there something wrong with him?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, was there a law against it? Did God say that this act is impermissible? So far from what we've seen from the covenant given to Adam, to Noah, and to Abraham, there is no law forbidding this kind of relationship.
So we start with, we believe in the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Prophet Lut alayhi salam, we believe he is a prophet of God, appointed by God, sent to try to save the people. He gave da'wah to them for years upon years. He even until the end, he was trying to save them by not leaving, right? He was trying to protect the town and keep him, he had hope, he liked the town that he lived in. He liked it because they were not actually treating him badly, right?
Yeah.
They considered him, he's just a prophet Lot, it's okay, you and your people just stay, it's okay, we'll leave you alone. We'll put you to the side, we don't touch you. إِنَّهُمْ أُنَاسٌ يَتَطَهَّرُونَ. That's what it says. You guys are people who purify yourselves, so they left them to the side. But then there must have been a reason for why Lot alayhi salatu wasalam would do that. There must have been a reason. So, which is the reason is, as you mentioned, is in the covenant that he was in, there was no law that God has brought down, just like the law of murder, for example, in the time of Noah. There was no insertion of a new jurisprudence in the book of laws. Right? There is no such a thing. So now there is no law that says you cannot offer your daughters to a group to prevent a gang of people from attacking your guests.
Yeah, exactly.
There is no such a law.
And what's interesting too, just as you recited in Arabic, the verse that talks about how you are people who purify themselves. One of the things that they said was, that that we do not have any right over your daughters. So is it that Lot forget, or what was the case then?
Yeah.
That Lot would say that to his people while he knows that his daughters are not even allowed for them, and that is based on purification, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so we know for sure, we spoke about purification, of course, between like the Canaanites and the Adamites. We gave a lot of examples about that in the past episodes, and you can check those episodes out on the YouTube channel, the AhmadiReligion.org, and also you can check out Abu Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam's videos if you have missed these videos. If you want, Abu Sadiq alayhi salam has made for each chapter of the book, each door of the book, a video dedicated, maybe 2 videos dedicated in explaining it himself as well. So you can actually find access to that anytime you need. Just visit the YouTube channel, The Mahdi Has Appeared YouTube channel, and you can also visit our website to download all these sources for free, absolutely free. You don't have to pay a dime for it. So yeah, back to it. Basically what happens is that it was homosexuality. If you go back to history, you'll find that it was only made illegal, or there is a law against it in the time of Moses alayhi salatu wasalam, in the Mosaic covenant.
Yes.
Because Moses, when he came with like 360 something laws, right? He came with lots of laws. He had an entire town that's following him, so therefore he had to put certain laws in place, and homosexuality became forbidden in his time.
Yeah.
So, and where for example, very clearly in Leviticus chapter 18 it says, "You shall not lie with a male as with a woman."
It is an abomination.
It is an abomination. So now he made it clear. He said it is an abomination for a male to lie with another male in the same way he would lie with a woman. So we know it's now been made illegal.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, as you said, this was not implemented until the time of Moses.
Yeah.
And also Abu Sadiq from his piece actually mentioned that the thing with homosexuality, although it wasn't a sin, it was kind of a sin, but not really but not in the sense of like, well, for example,
it is a sin, because why in Ahmad Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam does say that it's what it is this. It's like we have to be very clear about this, right? Yeah. The idea is that it goes against the natural way, the natural disposition of a human being is that a male is to be attracted to a female for reproduction reasons, right? So that you can reproduce. How can you reproduce and multiply? How can we increase and multiply and populate this planet if we all choose to go the opposite route? We would cease to exist. So the natural disposition is that we come together, a male and a female, and we produce kids. And that was in alignment with the first covenants of God, where He says, "Be fruitful and multiply." So it is
the first and second covenant.
Exactly.
And the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, they were meant to be believers and upholders of the second covenant. So they're already breaking that covenant, which is be fruitful and multiply. Right. They were preventing themselves on doing that because they actually left copulating with women altogether. Yeah. So the men would just go with the men, they stopped going to the women, and the women went with the women and they stopped going to the men. So they completely cut themselves out of ever reproducing again, and God was upset about that.
Yeah, exactly.
But the one thing that God was more upset about was all of these crazy crimes against humanity that they were doing, like the countless murders, which by the way, the Noahic covenant made it very clear that anybody who murders must be executed. You must face capital punishment. But these guys are getting left out of that law. Like nothing is preventing them from murdering. They're pretty much going back to how the Canaanites of old were doing their business in the time of Noah. And glory be to God, it's happening now in the time of Lot, where these people are now repeating the same deeds as those in the time of Noah, in the sense of extreme violence and murder. So just as God sent down a flood, now God sent down a punishment to these guys.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you think about it right now, if you have a car, and you're driving on a highway. Why should you not drive at 250 miles per hour or kilometers per hour?
Well, I mean, logic would deduce
if you're
that...
that speed, it's very high. But yeah.
I mean, logic would deduce that you either would kill your own self by slamming into a tree or a wall, or you would end up killing a pedestrian because you don't have enough time to, like...
There is a law about it.
Yeah, there is a law.
Remove the law and you will see many people start driving at that speed right now.
No, that's true.
You see what I'm saying?
But,
so there is a law about it, and laws are made to restrict you because of something else, for another reason. So why God didn't put down this law in the first 4 covenants, and He puts it in the first 3 covenants, and He puts it in the 4th covenant? Why?
Because it never happened.
Because either it never happened, or it is happening, as we have evidence for that it happened. But at the same time, it was not a main reason for God to actually. It wasn't the main problem. Yeah. The main problem was what? Was the murder? Was the rape? Was the torture? Because we spoke, there's a lot of stories, they used to torture their visitors as well, these Sodom and Gomorrah. So when God heard all these cries and shouts of injustice being done, inhuman treatment being done against people who are innocent, He decided to take it into His own hand and destroy the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, before He destroyed it, Lot is there and his family. And as you said earlier, he was commanded by the angels and dragged by the angels outside of the city, him and his wife and his daughters, and they were kicked out to go into a different town. Well, in this case, he took his wife in the same way that Noah took his wife, but in the time of Lot, she turned around and she was turned into a pillar of salt. So God kind of like stopped that problem from happening again, the same issue. Now what happened is that then they go into a town, into a place, and the daughters make their father drunk because they say, our father's lineage is cut off.
Yeah.
That's it. We have to now survive. We have to reproduce and multiply.
Yeah, they actually thought it was like the end of the world. They didn't know that anyone else...
Imagine seeing that, right? Imagine you're walking outside and you're walking in the desert or like in the wilderness, and you turn around and you cannot turn around because your mom just turned around and she turned into a pillar of salt.
Yeah.
And you're obviously freaking out because your dad is telling you the angels are destroying the town, and you are hearing things, and you're walking away as you're hearing things, and you're told, do not turn around, or else you'll be punished like your mom. So obviously they believed that 100% that they were in the end of times. That's it. We're dead. That's it. There's no humans other than us now.
Yeah, and the way that they procured the matter, right, was they got their, as mentioned in the Bible, they got their father drunk, they had intercourse with their father, and they procured children from their father. And that's something that is known in history. There was a tribe known as the Moabites and the Ammonites, right? And the Muslims have no choice but to accept this narrative. Otherwise, how did these people come about saying that, hey, they're the sons of, or the descendants of Lot, through these 2 females who are obviously the daughters of Lot, and turns out the father is Lot himself. It's not even so it's not even their grandfather. It's actually their father.
Whoever denies this have to present the evidence for denial. You cannot just deny. We're presenting evidence for. You have to present the evidence against.
Yeah, and Abu Saik makes a few points. After talking about the story and showing the story to us, he points out that one, he was just as Noah was allowed to take his wife, Lot was allowed to take his wife. 2. One point is
alcohol was not made forbidden at that time still.
Yeah, exactly. So
he drank.
Yeah, exactly. He drank, and if a prophet of God is drinking in the time in which Prophet Muhammad didn't show up to prohibit it, well, then that just goes to show you that before Prophet Muhammad, it was permissible to consume. 3rd is that sexual relations between father and daughters were allowed, and there was no restrictions in the first 3 covenants in terms of incestual relations. And also this whole thing, even with group intercourse, that was displayed obviously in both the Quran and the Bible. And 4, this whole thing about, that they are people who purify themselves, the case against Lot wanting to marry off his daughters to this whole mob of people, is that this is in reference to circumcision. So they knew that, okay, we are not a people who circumcise. Lot is offering his daughters, but he knows that no one is allowed to be with his daughters so long as they are not circumcised. We are not of his covenant. 4 is that that was already 4. 5 is that when he had offered his daughters, they were aware of this aspect of the seed of Satan and the seed of, so they were aware of
and
this.
So that leaves us with like, okay, what does Ahmad al-Hasan alayhi salatu wasalam and Abu Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, like, say about this? Like what do they say about it today? Well, we have an entire video of Abu Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam on the YouTube channel, which you can find, where Abu Sadiq explains exactly what we believe about this case scenario. So Ahmad al-Hasan alayhi salatu wasalam, one day he was visited by not himself, the mosque that he had built in Iraq, in Basra. He was that mosque entered into it one day a gay person, right? And one day when he entered into the house of God, the people knew about him. They all kind of started whispering between each other, right? They're saying, hey, this guy is gay, he cannot be here, it's going to be bad, public eye is going to be like, talking bad about us, and it's not good, let's kick him out. So they went and they kicked this gay person out of the mosque, of the Husayniyah. So then what happens? He comes back, alayhi salatu wasalam, and they explain to him what happened. This guy came and such. He got super upset. He got so mad with them. He was so angry at them. He said, if you kick this guy out of the house of God, then where do you think he's going to go? Who's going to take him? Who's going to accept him? Except for Satan.
And that's something that we have to make clear in the show too, is that the one thing about this dawah and the one thing about this covenant that is established between us and God is that the Savior of mankind, Abdullah Hashim Abu Sadiq, accepts everybody.
Yes.
There's whether you are heterosexual, homosexual, or whatever kind of orientation that you declare yourself to be, whatever skin color you were, whatever background you came from, even if you were Satan or these children of Satan themselves, if you are a person who wants to go back to God, a person who seeks God, the doors of God and His mercy is wide open. And that's something incredible. And the story of Sodom and Gomorrah just also goes to show that although they were a people lost, there was still that open door of, guys, enter upon the covenant, here are my daughters, and it didn't click with their brains. It didn't click with their brains when they said, you know that we don't have a right over your daughters. But if they entered upon the covenant, and if they stopped what they were doing and accepted that the angels be left alone, God probably would have had mercy on them.
Exactly. So this shows also the level of mercy of God, and at the same time, how we should be super careful how we believe, what we believe in, and where we take our beliefs from. If we take it from the scholars, immediately they'll tell you, disbeliever, just throw him from the building, because that's what is written in the books, because, they don't understand what's written anyway. Yeah. So the idea, or if you go to a rabbi or a monk or something like that, they'll tell you similar stuff, but the idea is that you have to make sure where you get your sources from, and the source has to be a man who's appointed by God, which is Abu Sadiq Abdullah Hashim alayhi salatu wasalam. He's the only man on the face of the earth that raised the will of Rasulullah, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa. He has the knowledge and he's sharing it with us in the Goal of the Wise, and you can download this book for free from our website. And he raised the banner of allegiance is to God. There is no allegiance except to God. That God is the king, and he appoints a king over the earth who's a human who can communicate with us the will of God, and therefore we can apply the will of God by following and giving allegiance and supporting this man, so that we can come out of this corruption in the land and be actually one with the will of God and spread justice around the earth.
Well said. Well said, Hussam. And anybody who wants to be a part of this covenant, does not matter where you came from, does not matter who you are and what you've done. God's doors are open and our arms are open to receive the children of Adam once again. Anyway, guys, that's all that we have. Join us on the next episode. Tune in to the rest of the shows that are going to be following our show. And peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.